Hey guys, this is Ms. Hurst coming at you with a video on what I did to prepare for distance learning for my classes. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through how I planned out what was going on. So at my school, we were only allowed to do review, and we were told to do review of marking period 1, marking period 2, and marking period 3. So the very first thing that I did is I identified what am I allowed to do. In my case, that was the first 3 marking periods, and then they gave me a timeline. So my timeline in this case was about 30 minutes a day is our recommended, and we had 2 weeks for each marking period. So I have 10 days. So in my case, I listed out all of my items. So I had a marking period 1 column, marking period 2, and marking period 3. I identified like the key topics. So in marking period 1, we did constructions for the most part. And then I went back and looked at like, well, what was it that we really didn't do as much of that I think we should have, that would be good to review. And in part of that constructions unit, we had angle relationships, and our curriculum only does like 2 lessons on it. So that was my like big detail of what we did. In marking period 2, we covered congruence. And in marking period 3, we covered similarity. Essentially, it was unit 1, unit 2, unit 3. We're using a new curriculum, so we're trying to figure out how to timeline it. Because this is what we covered, my plan was to go through, now that I've realized, oh, okay, so like in marking period 1, angle relationships, pair lines didn't get covered. I'm going to focus on reviewing the constructions and then doing more with those angle relationships. In marking period 2, it was congruence. Well, and same thing for similarity. Our book doesn't really have numbers, so including algebra. And more proofs was my go-to. So now that I knew what topics I was going to use and how I was going to go through and what my timeline was, about 30 minutes a day or 3 hours a week. So now I'm going to develop 3 hours a week of materials. And you can always do more if you do it the way I'm doing it, so that if you want to, you can have more, but you don't have to. So I said, all right, that gives me 3 hours a week of materials, roughly. Technically it's 5 hours total. I'm going to have an extra half hour per week in case, people just want to. So then I decided, all right, what am I going to do for my content, and what do I feel like it's important to practice? So I made a list of different ways that I would present material. And what I'm going to do is, we're a Schoology school, but you can use Google Classroom, you can make a hyperdoc. It's something called a choice board. In Schoology, I do it as a completion folder. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to put this folder into my course and say, okay, pick any 7, 8 items, whatever number I deem to complete to review this topic. The key detail here is that all items can't be dependent on each other if you do it this way. So all tasks should be independent. All right. So now I'm going to go through and start saying, okay, so what type of tasks might I want? Well, I might want remediation programs. We know that not all students come to us on grade level, so having a remediation program could be really useful. In my case, I have Moby Max, which I pay for. It's $100 for 200 students. I personally quite like it, and they've found a lot of details there. Maybe I have some gaming programs like SumDog. Currently, that's K-8 free. They do not have a high school, unfortunately. Maybe Prodigy. But as you can see, all of these things are sort of gaming, interactive, definitely that old remediation based. The next thing that I want to have is a video that I create. And I always put videos onto Edpuzzle. Then I can embed questions. I can see which students actually watched it. I'm going to have a video from me and a video from someone else. And what that's going to do is I don't have to do as much work. Once I have that Edpuzzle video set up, then I was like, okay, now I have a way that I am conveying information that if someone's not as proficient, they can start with. So for me, this purple, I added a little disclaimer that said, if you need a review, start here. On the folder so that kids know that, like, hey, if they don't remember stuff, they want to start with the videos. Then I was like, okay, so now I'm going to do another thing where it's going to video review it. It's going to have questions they can answer. It's going to have PowerPoint. Oh, I know it would be great for that. And that's a website called Formative or Go Formative. And what that's going to allow me to do is I can search their library, and that's actually what I ended up doing. So I found a pre-made lesson. So again, I'm not having to do quite as much put together work. This pre-made lesson has a video, it has a slideshow, and practice. So it's everything I want to see in a lesson. It's got all those components. Another website that can do something like this is called wiser.me. And I can create a worksheet with similar items. This video, this slide, this practice. All of that would be there. All right, now that I have that, I have to start thinking, not all of my students have access to technology. So anything that I add a little green star next to, that could be printed out. Well, I can't print out remediation programs or Edpuzzle, but I can print out some of Formative, and I can print out some of Wiser. So now I need something that I can actually print out. And my usual go-to there for that is a CUDA worksheet because it's easy. There's a whole bunch of other programs that have it. In this case, I found a CUDA that I liked. So CUDA worksheet. It is 100% able to be printed out so that my students without Wi-Fi can use it. But what I ended up doing is I embedded it online for my students with Wi-Fi. And I embedded it into a program called ClassKick. And that allows them to write on the screen so that I can see their work as they go and they don't have to send me a picture or anything like that. Next up, I have something else that can be printed that's kind of an interesting way. I did projects. Now these aren't like multiple week projects. These are a one-day project, kind of more like a performance task. And since I was doing my topic of similarity, I found it on Teachers Pay Teachers. Again, I'm limiting the amount that I personally have to create. There's a ton of great resources out there. Just make sure you vet them. So I went to Teacher Pay Teacher, and I just searched similarity project, and I found this awesome picture one. So I included that. I'm looking for another one because I want something they can do at home. All right. Another performance task using Schoology was a discussion board post. That discussion board post is meant to increase the community and get them talking to each other. So in this case, I said, you know, find something in your house, take a picture of it that are similar items. And I made it a game by having them go through and they can decide, you know, if they have the same item, they can post a picture of that same item and knock the other person out. And the goal is to, you know, be the last one standing. So you want to encourage a question or activity. That'll get them talking. So it could be, here's a problem. What did the person do wrong? How would you guide that person to do that problem correctly? What steps might you include? Then go back and read somebody else's steps and see if that would work for you, if that would make sense. The nice thing about both of these is that if you do the discussion board and the project right, they are fully printable. So I now have 3 items that I can print, and I have a couple items up top I can't print, and I have 2 things I can print some of, but not necessarily all. What this is going to do, it's going to give the ability that if my students don't have Wi-Fi and they don't have internet, we can print these packets and deliver it to them. The next thing I did was after my creative activity here, my projects, my performance tasks, I thought maybe a scavenger hunt there too even. I have a con assignment and a Delta Math. Again, those two assignments can't be printed out, but both of these will give a video to walk through how to do things. So for those with Wi-Fi, they are excellent because they get that walkthrough if they don't know how to do a question. Again, I can keep track of what they have. And so these were my main things. It ended up with approximately 10 items total. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into a completion folder on Schoology so that students can go through and pick what they want to do. By putting it into a completion folder, the students get a little check mark that makes it so that if they want to do something, they can, and if they don't have to. But they can keep track of it a lot better from day to day, because if they get the little check mark, that means they already did that item, so they can move on. So I hope this helps for showing you how I went through and planned. Again, all I did was I identified what I needed or what I was allowed to cover. I figured out, what's my timeline. I listed out the topics, and then I gave individual assignments that are completely independent of each other, although that if you did them, they would help each other. I identified where if you needed extra help, it might be a good idea to start with these activities because they're going to go through and do more review versus the other assignments where there's a little less of that. So I hope this helps you, and I hope you guys have a great day. Happy teaching in this wonderful time. Bye-bye.